Okay, we are live. We are still the Senate Education Committee on February 20th. We're now shifting gears to go back to S-227 and act relating to creating immigration protocols in Vermont schools. And I think we have both Chelsea and Mark, right? We're good. So we all have new one. We have did we get copies of this for everybody? Was it just him?
Oh, yes, I have it's now.
What is this? This is, remember that when Chelsea was here, whatever day it was, Tuesday maybe, we asked and we raised some issues, or some things that would make sense for 227. And I asked whether we could actually get some proposed language. She said yes, and we have it. Starts at the very bottom of the first page. So I think we're gonna, in whatever order you two want to do it, walk through it. But why don't you both, to start with, introduce yourselves for the record?
Sure. My name is Mark Koenig. I'm the Director of Policy Services and Legislative Affairs for Vermont School Boards Association.
Yeah.
Hi, I am Chelsea Myers. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Superintendents Association.
Okay. So did you want to make some, whatever you want to do, the floor is yours. If you want to make some comments first and then walk us through the language, or however you want to do it is fine.
Yeah, I think that's fine. So before we start discussing, I just want to say that the VSBA does support the intent of this bill. The following are only suggestions being presented so that it would make it easier for school districts and superintendents to implement the intention of 227. So school board policies are formally adopted, binding broad statements of direction set by the board. Administrative procedures are the specific step-by-step actions developed by superintendents to implement those policies. Policies define what is required, whereas procedures define how that policy is carried out day to day. So in general, we hope that the majority of this work can live inside of administrative procedures, and that it aligns clearly with the training of employees, especially those who would interface directly with building access and security. So we do have a section by section. Some of this is specific. What you have in front of you is from Chelsea and VSA. Some of the things I will talk about are not necessarily reflected directly in the paper in front of you, but we don't have any differences of opinion, just some other edits that we considered. So with the title, I can start there. The bill currently adds the words immigration protocols. When Mr. Thompson from the state AG's office testified last week, he made note of the fact that the Second Circuit might take issue with focusing on just one governmental agency when the underlying concern raised in the bill is relevant regarding a number of state and federal agencies. So the title of the chapter could be renamed Fire and Emergency Preparedness Drills, Safety Patrols, and Law Enforcement Access. And the title of the new section of 1486 could be Law Enforcement Access Policy. And to that end, we would recommend changing the definition of federal immigration authority under 1A to be expanded to read law enforcement agent, means an agent of federal, state, or local law enforcement authorized with the power to arrest or detain individuals or manage the custody of detained individuals for a law enforcement purpose, including the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and U.S. Customs.
Wait. Do we have this language? We have what, Chelsea? So you're doing a whole other set of changes?
I'm just changing that one definition to broaden the scope to try and reflect the concern that the state AG's office raised by narrowing the focus just to immigration. The Second Circuit apparently has thought that that was somewhat problematic. This could be a number of law enforcement agencies that
Yes.
we would be concerned with. So just the suggestion that it be broadened.
Okay, that's fine. Can you, but before we're done here, can you put this in writing for us and be very specific about those? Because we can't keep up trying to write it down.
I'm just trying to give you ideas, and then if they sound interesting, then I will be happy to provide you with detail like Chelsea did earlier, but we just didn't coordinate fast enough to be able to have one one thing, but I'm actually going to hand it over to Chelsea now. That's as far as I'm going to go on this topic.
Oh, okay, so maybe Chelsea can put, or you two can put that together for us, 'cause
Yep.
even if we don't like it, give it to us.
Yep.
And we'll
Okay.
take it from there.
Yeah, so most of the other changes, I believe VSBA was on board with, but these changes that you see in front of you are not reflective of that broadening of scope. We haven't weighed in on that. I haven't like kind of collected feedback on that potential change, but what you have in front of you is exactly what we had put in our broad testimony the other day. It's to making sure that the right language is in policy, the right language is in procedure, and the right language is in guidance. So it looks like a lot of cross out and things like that, but really it's a lot of just moving around to the appropriate, what we feel is the appropriate place for implementation. And so if you look in the document that I provided, the changes to the definitions are pretty minimal. It just asks that you not put that you strike out the examples of a non-public area of a school site. This allows for a broader definition to help ensure that all sites of the school are included as needed. And so we think if you narrow it too much, that there could be something that's missing or left out. And so we just recommend that you keep it broad to school site. And then the real bulk of the changes that we're recommending here is, sorry about that, just changing what is what is in policy and what is in procedure. So the next section is policy required. And what our recommendation here is that the Secretary of Education, in consultation with stakeholder groups, including the VSBA, shall create a standalone model policy. The model policy is not to recommend that this is a recommended policy, that you have a lot of places in statute that you have required model policies. And what that allows for is not individual districts to have to create the foundation of that policy in 119 different districts. So this happens a lot. It happened with the mascot bill. It happened with the behavioral threat assessment. The central organization, the Agency of Education, creates a model, and then the school districts can adopt something as comprehensive or a little bit, it has to be as a comprehensive, but it can be a little bit nuanced in terms of their local context. So you all have done that in statute quite a bit. And so that's exactly what we're doing here in this recommendation in Part B. And so then it takes what we would recommend to include in the policy portion of that. And to be honest, I looked at different policies from around the state and around the country to come up with those four different pieces. I'm sorry, 3 different pieces. So part 1 is about the data management and data collection. And so we pull in what was section E in your current draft to that particular topic. And then part 2 is about the access of law enforcement to school sites. And part 3 would be the piece about collaborating with immigration authorities that you had in your bill. So those are the core components of what would be included in policy. And then we would move to section C, which again is immigration resources. That's the same as what you have now. And the changes here we recommend are just to help streamline some of the language. We thought that number 2 was a bit redundant and did not provide flexibility in wider training opportunities because of the designation of a single officer. This is comprehensive work. And so I think by minimizing it to one individual person that would receive that kind of training and information is limiting. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize my camera had gone off.
So
Yeah.
Chelsea,
Sure.
the flip side of that
Mhm.
is if everybody, the old saying, if everybody's responsible, nobody's responsible. How do we ensure that people know who the go-to person is?
Yeah, so that's in a later section. So this is just
Okay.
about who receives training. I think what you're referring to is the access piece of the puzzle, like access to the
Okay,
building
I'm
and
sorry.
things like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is about the training portion.
Yeah, this is about
going back
resources.
Okay, going back a step,
Sure.
you talked about how the school has to have a, can either adopt a model policy or add to it. It doesn't say that anywhere, or they even, it only says that agency must adopt the model, provide a model policy. It never actually says they have to do it.
Yeah, that's in your implementation section at the end of the bill. I basically
Okay.
modeled it on statute that you already have and how it was sequenced. I am not ledge counsel, so I think that they
Okay.
could potentially support that, but that's kind of how I had it structured. At the end, it
Okay.
says all districts must adopt a policy at least as comprehensive as the model
That's at the
policy.
end, you said. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so these are the resources section. Again, just kind of not limiting the ability to distribute resources. And then on section 2, we recommend just broadening the scope of the support that a student may receive, not to just the specific instance of guardian detainment, but any impact of actions by immigration authorities, or if you open it up to all law enforcement, as Mark suggested, then that would be needed to be amended in the language there. So it's just allowing for a little bit broader a scope for the support of students. The next is the new section, which would be model administrative procedures. As we said, a lot of like the very specific nuances of who can go in the building when and those types of procedures live in administrative procedures, not in board policy, because the administrators are the ones that are carrying out the implementation of that policy. And you can, there's several examples currently already on school districts' websites that reflect exactly what is written in this rewrite or potential rewrite. So the next section is model administrative procedures, and it basically takes the language that's already in the bill and puts it in the model procedures, and that is sections 1 through 5 of D. And you'll see the crossout language of E. That is because E has been already put in the model policy language. I did not delete that completely. It's just in a different place. So that would be included in the model policy, and then 1 through 5 would be in model procedures, because that has a lot to do with who has authority over letting people into the building, and the pieces about data and providing data as well in those procedures. And that is it's very reflective of the procedures that several school districts have already adopted. And then we didn't make any changes to the resource guide, but you might want to consider the dates since they're pretty soon. And then back to Chair Bongart's point, section 3 talks about the policy and procedure adoption. And so that's basically saying when the school board shall adopt the policy, that needs to be as comprehensive as the model policy developed by the secretary, and the same thing with the model procedures as well.
Okay, so one thing you looking for.
So this is stakeholder input into the bill. So ledge councils would have to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So back on section 2, support for students.
Yeah.
What you've done here is shifted everything from the superintendent to the agency. And part of the idea was, and I just want to explore this with you, that the district would have somebody that they had sort of talked to in advance and knew that that was going to be the person they call if something happened to help. And you're suggesting that rather than that, the agency compile a list. But
yeah, so oh, I'm sorry.
But so I'm just wondering, I kind of liked the idea of the district knowing, and they already knew each other in advance. And here, this is just a list. of
Yeah,
blind.
the language could be tightened. What the intent there on that language was that certain regions of the state don't necessarily have all those connections and partnerships. And so having a resource that allows superintendents to access those partnerships and like the kind of all of the plethora of resources in, for example, Chittenden County in rural parts of the state, that there would be a central kind of repository for that information, but that the superintendent would still be the one that is the nexus between the student and those resources. So it's not taking the superintendent out of the equation. It's more just getting support with developing those partnerships because certain districts have more capacity than others to be able to develop those partnerships.
Maybe say something, or else maybe, I don't know if we want to put it in statute, but you want the superintendent to have at least talked to somebody ahead of time and have some kind of relationship. But I guess hopefully they would do that on their own. Or would you suggest it as part of the procedures as opposed to the statute?
Yeah, I think to the extent that we can leave flexibility in how those partnerships are formed, and reliably give support to those areas of the state that maybe have not historically had those partnerships to be able to formulate them. From our perspective, the greater flexibility around that support for student, the better, because I think those adults in the building have kind of the best knowledge of how to help support that student. And so I wouldn't be super prescriptive in that section of the law, but that's totally up to you all.
But could you, I guess my question is, would it make sense to put it into the model administrative procedures that the superintendent should have some kind of, like, or the identified person should have a relationship with the person they're going to be calling ahead of time?
So the procedures in our vantage point is more about the access to the building and the data privacy.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so I would maybe leave it as a separate section, but again, leave as much flexibility. Superintendents, principals, educators, the most important thing to them is the relationships with their students. And I don't know that we can really adequately capture how they would wrap around that student in a small amount of text in law. And so I just wouldn't want to box anyone into a specific way of interacting with students, because I do think those educators know best.
I wasn't talking about the students. I was talking about the agency to help them if something were to happen. The person they call an emergency, that the superintendent would call, I forget the language we had initially. It was a legal advocacy organization that we took out because we didn't even know what that meant necessarily. But I was just, that's the relationship I was thinking of ahead of time.
Can I make a
Yeah.
suggestion? So I will say, to my knowledge, Vermont Asylum Assistance Project will travel across the state. They will talk to anyone in the state, and they are looking at the language right now to see if, you know, what would make the most sense to make that seamless.
Sure.
I don't think it's disagreeing with anybody. I just think there shouldn't be a reason that administrators don't know who to help the
Yes,
student get in contact with.
that's what I'm trying to get at.
Like it's, to my knowledge.
But I think this is, I see where you're going and it makes sense actually, on one level to have the agency help put together the list. Daphne, is this on what, did we post this?
I haven't received it.
Okay,
Yeah.
because remember to send us a copy.
I was in the car trying to get
That's okay.
back
That's
for,
okay.
for this.
But we want to post this and then you're gonna send us something incorporating Mark's thoughts at the beginning. So maybe send us draft 2 of your,
Yes, we can do that.
okay.
Sure. I haven't asked superintendents about the broader inclusion, so I would want to get back. And so maybe just that separate section is from VSBA for now. Just because I would need to go back to my board about that.
That's fine, Mark. You send it to us then, as you were kind of reading it, so that we have it. We can think we can put it all together with Ledge Council and have a discussion.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the same thing in terms of the support for students, and it's just a matter of getting that language correct. The agency has worked with us in the earlier part of 2025 to provide a resource to superintendents, and we kind of acted as a middle person to get some of that training out. So I think there's just a lot of ways to wrap around both school districts and students, and I think we're in agreement and open to the language on that premise.
All right, yeah, this is this is feeling like we're on our way here with the work, and so we're waiting for a little bit for another
Well, who is the drafter again? Because,
Chelsea.
sorry, the legislative council.
Oh. That. I don't know.
I didn't think.
Oh, it's Rick.
It's
right,
Rick. I was like,
Of course, right, of course, we did that.
So
Yeah.
Rick has the
Oh, sorry.
language from Rebecca Callaghan. I'm happy to work with Rick to smooth out both drafts. I think they speak to the same things and do so in slightly different ways that aren't conflicting. They just need to be worked out.
So Rick doesn't have this yet.
Exactly. So that's the thing. I'm wondering how you want to proceed, because we could work on it outside of committee. So we're not.
So he has
He has the one I sent
from,
from Dr. Rebecca Callaghan at UVM.
okay, and then we're waiting, you said who else was working on it?
This.
No, but you mentioned the Alliance or somebody else.
Oh, well, you're right. So Val, Jill Martin Diaz was taking a look at the language over the weekend. I said on Tuesday we would need feedback,
Okay,
because I just gave it to him yesterday, and they do a lot of immigration law work.
yeah, I think that would be, so take this with you.
Yeah.
And it'll be online, it'll be posted.
Mhm.
And you could then work with Rick and come back and have a couple of the new draft, that would be. That.
Do we have this exact thing digitally?
We don't have it yet.
I'll send it right after this.
Yeah. Thanks, that was helpful, I appreciate the time you put into it. Yeah, we'll put together a new draft and just go through it with everything and make decisions, but this is helpful. And Mark will look for yours, we'll add that in mix. Okay,
Will do.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Beat the storm, sun brushes, yeah.
Yeah.
My wife's been text me.
Is it starting to
We'll
snow?
get it no matter what.
Yeah, I'm having to bring it to it. Yeah, well, that's, the three of us are, and you probably are too.
Nah, I go with that. I guess.
Oh, whenever we hit Bolton, right, changes, so to speak.
But
Yeah.
you're going north. You're
Kind of going southwest.
So we're adjourned.
Okay.
We're adjourned.